Here's Jacob.
Yo.
And we just had a discussion of what is one of the best questions to ask people. What is it?
When do you think the singularity is coming?
And recently an insight that we got from asking this question to people is twofold. I've asked this 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it was like 2100, 2200,
Yeah.
2300, or like it'll never happen. I just did it right now and I'm getting decade, 2 decades. And so that's crazy because now for all those people who answer that, the next step is the embodiment step, which is that gap is one of the biggest gaps in the world today. If people are saying this, they're stating there's a decade to 2 decades before we simply cannot even fathom what tech in the world looks like, the power that we have, the exponential change we're going through. And you're basically saying at this point, the beginning is near or the end is near.
Yep.
Right? So that's kind of the two paths. Now, I'm saying that I'm very surprised right now. I'm actually in a state of like, holy shit, the normies have woken up. It's not normie to not believe in the singularity anymore. It's normie to understand the singularity is coming. So this is, of course, relative to that movie Don't Look Up, where it's like, at first everyone's like, no, the scientists and researchers are dumb. That'll never happen. Like Ray Kurzweil is crazy. Who wrote The Singularity is Near. That's our comet.
Yeah.
ChatGPT was the glimpse of the comet, and now it seems to be really spreading. But what people believe it, but they don't believe it. That information, when prompted, they know that it's truth, but they don't embody that truth. Because truly, imagine if someone comes to you and says, what if you knew you only had 10 to 20 years to really live,
Or to live as you know it.
Yeah.
Even if it goes perfectly, it's going to be so exciting and so even if things go perfectly, and it's like the best case singularity, life is going to be totally different. It's like
Totally
it's your last
fucking
shot
different.
at this version of Earth that's been around for a while.
And I just think that I might even say it's higher than 1,000x differential of people who know that versus people who are living by it. And it's because culture and society are so behind and we're so coded to fit in. Jacob, one of my goals is to live with a community who truly just lives by that ideal. Because part of that beauty that comes with it is this sense of it's invested in the now, in each other, in what we can do, in the story that we're telling. It's all that there's a lot of beauty that comes from a recognition of post-scarcity coming. The same beauty that came with people who used to imagine heaven after death in their lives in the way, people lived in the past. It's funny because people in the past were closer to God, but we've never been closer to God in terms of, we used to dream and have these stories of one day there will be, no limits to wealth and all will become kings. And that used to be fairy tales and stories.
Right.
That thousands of years ago, while they have no fucking computer or railway system and they're riding horses, that they're all like, yes, one day we will be there. And it was widespread. And they would kill you if you didn't believe it. And it's very, very funny, but the world is beginning to see it. I think this is where philosophy and religion do come big into play. I think I've known this for a very long time. I think that's why I've been fascinated with religion. I think I have singularityism. It's absolutely fascinating.
Having a
embodiment. Truly just like setting up, telling the story, being like, everyone, let's go ask people on the street. You start that as like part of the story. And then just start the conversation. Why the fuck are you not doing shit? And I've been thinking about what to do for a while. Because all we really need is it's funny, but all we really need is the right idea. That's all we really need. Because we're entering an age of infinite manifestation potential.
Yeah.
And so the ideas become more valuable than the execution layer.
Mm-hmm.
It actually becomes what can we do? And it becomes getting enough people to understand what we can do. The biggest risk is for people to not coordinate and to not fight against totalitarian regime. The biggest risk is to accept abundance but slavery. The New World Order type vibe.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is that I think as we reach infinite manifestation potential, even the idea that we hold, the idea of waking other people up and making everyone their highest self, that is simply the idea which can be manifested, and the tools will be created that will help raise people's frequency and vibes. My Holy Viable app is supposed to be this sort of vibe machine that the more people that use it form a collective to sort videos based on their capability to raise someone's frequency. And that's just the beginning. before AI generated content truly enters the scene. And I know what's really great about this topic and idea is that even for me, who considers himself to be a very good exponential thinker, futurist, someone who spends all of their time thinking about the future, and I have difficulty embodying it and meshing it, and understanding it. Which, if I say I'm in the top 1% of thinkers about the future, and it's like, holy shit, well, we better do more, better thinking. I really like the idea of what you brought up here. It relates to a previous idea of mine. You've been talking about a coordination problem of the identifying of problems. It's like if we can collectively identify problems, understanding the problem is 50% of the solution. One of the problems that exists is that cancel culture is really inefficient at canceling what needs to be canceled or pushed. The societal coordination of how to upgrade society is very poor. And in some sense, the problems might not just be predicated based on geography, but on people. So what is the main problem of Elon Musk? If Elon could know that, he would actually be better off.
Yes.
He would have a chance to fix it. Culture would be platformed to really put it in someone's face to address these things which we have problems with them for. And I think if people could see the main problems that people have with them, they would not only have a better chance to address it, but collectively we'd identify a lot of stuff that are just real problems that people have and force them to take action. Like there's certain questions I remember the internet always like boistering where everyone in comment threads is saying the same thing. It's like, why is Zuckerberg not doing this? Why is he not doing this? Why is he not talking about this? And so it's like everybody in this media channel knows what they want. Zuck is in a different world. He's not on these forums. He's not on these things. His employees probably aren't going to send him an email and say, check this out, they're shitting on you. Eventually it probably got to him because there was so much bad press, you know. Eventually he did a PR study, you know. But yeah, the right information is key. Building a large community is key. Storytelling is key. I think if there's devotion towards storytelling, a lot. Does it? What benefits do you get from being an SF?
Well,
for idea flow specifically.
Oh, I mean, so much. I would say living with really incredible makers who just get up every morning and start building stuff and shipping stuff is just like really inspiring. It's really fun for its own sake because I love doing that too. It's a part that really speaks to a piece of me. So I'm inspired to build more stuff and also empowered to get unstuck in building stuff. So there's a degree of knowledge transfer, also a degree of knowledge transfer in operation. And some of it is even kind of stuff I learned from you, which is like ways of being, ways of presenting, ways of interacting, the other tools that people have. And then I think the thing that kind of keeps me in the Bay Area.
The energy of excellence, being able to rub it in the many forms that it exists in the world is a very powerful thing. And it's such a recharge in many different ways. To just see how someone else operates and then you're like, I like that. Your subconscious does it. Your subconscious steals shit all the time.
Oh, totally.
It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like in the last summer as my housemate Alan, I mean, that guy jams when he hacks. Mm-hmm. He like gets down, wakes up, he's like building the thing and he's really inspired and it's like, oh dang, what am I doing with my time? This guy's just like crushing it and then he'll learn another new thing and he'll jam and just crush this next new thing. It's like being around people who are like inspiring people like that is like, and so clearly like in their zone is always its own gift. And this is like one form of that. So it's like what you said about excellence. I think excellence can take many shapes, but that's one form of excellence. And then also I think finding a sort of community of people who are down to like be intellectual and nerdy, but also open-minded and spiritual. So I can like investigate practices like Qigong and so on and so forth with folks who are going to break them down like I will and sort of figure out how to make them as efficient, like effective Qigong, not merely like do the thing in the very traditional, almost dogmatic way. So I think that's not the be-all end-all of like spiritual or wellness development, but it's one interesting take. Additionally, I think the extended Burning Man community is really excellent. And there's a certain vibe when you get sufficient folks who've been to Burning Man in the same house party or gathering. And it's both intellectually open, emotionally open, free, playful. And it really reflects like a picture of what eudaimonia could be, of human flourishing.
Explain eudaimonia.
Yeah, so this is an ancient Greek concept of human flourishing, and it's sort of what we're all seeking. And it can take many different forms, but some aspects of it entail a sort of combination of many of your basic needs being met and your emotional needs being met. I feel like I could give a better explanation if I reviewed the original definition. But trying to optimize for eudaimonia is a very tight value loop. Like, that's value delivered right there. And one reflection I was having this morning was about it's extraordinary to be at what I would call as access points to bliss. It's like certain folks are obviously loving what they're doing. They're obviously in a state of flourishing and joy with what they're doing. And the opportunity to be around people who are flourishing in a state of joy doing what they're doing is such a gateway. Like, I love those the high school kids who are just over yesterday who are working on all these projects. I mean, I've known them for a very long time, and the way they build stuff together is just so joyful and so fantastic, and it actually reminds me of my own high school experiences, except these kids are even smarter. So that's like one little partial taste of flourishing. At the same time, I would say also I feel a lot of desire, and occasionally this desire is fulfilled, to contribute. And I think that a lot of folks in the tech intellectual scene have not spent as much time doing the emotional heart level work. Mm-hmm. And it is satisfying to be able to like teach and share some new practices that can benefit folks' lives who have never sort of felt outside the usual way of connecting or the usual limitations of their universes. So if someone who's never really felt the potency of emotional release that can come from a mind-body connection and are in a day-to-day point hitting a crisis and suffering on it, mm-hmm. It's like I don't need to go stick myself in the pathway and be the hero or something and save them, but it's like, oh gosh, someone's got to do it, and I wish someone else were there and doing it, but I don't see anyone, so I'm gonna go there and do it, and then hopefully document it so I can scale doing it and not have to do it next time. So yeah, a desire for contribution, because holistically I think the world's going pretty well, and it's crazy, and it like makes me crazy optimistic, because we're doing so much stuff obviously wrong. There's like all these unprocessed traumas floating around, all this like lack of aptitude.
That's a pretty good take.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're doing so much shit imperfectly. When you look at the problems on how society is set up,
yeah,
it's so easy to just go, I think like all this is not perfect, we can improve it, we can fix it. But yes, if you kind of just look at it from a perspective of how things were and how things are, we're alive, shit's relatively stable, we have the affordances of what only the greatest kings of the planet had not many years ago. You know, there's aspects that are far worse, but in most aspects it's great. We're just getting better at the solution space. I think the biggest thing it comes down to, mm-hmm. and this is where I have this fascination with religion, and really a fascination with religion is really just a fascination of community.
Yeah.
But it's a fascination of venture scalable community. Isn't that I've never really thought about it like that. That was a new brainstorm. But yeah, if you think about it, community is always limited by community builders, by your infrastructure builds, etc., etc. But information is a hyper scalable thing, content. And you know what many people have found is that it's likely not down to the perfect holiest text, the perfect line, or the perfect phrase. It's more the aesthetic, the vibe that something gives off. And so some of the greatest community builds, Praxis raised $15 million just off of posting cool things on Twitter, getting a Discord group of 10,000 people, around a big idea.
Interesting.
And I look at that and I go, okay, I want to post the best aesthetics and the best vibes possible. And then I think about, do I pay someone to start creating this content? And I think, yes, that's a part of it. The content can promote it. But I reached a point where I realized I create the platform. I create the machine, the algorithm of the search for the greater vibes. And really then, if we really want to think about it on an esoteric level, what is God other than an empowerment algorithm, pushing every individual to become its highest self? If we really want to perform Deus Ex Machina, then we must perform a ritual of a search for the holy grail of vibes.
Interesting. Actually, there's a side comment. I was going to say as a side comment, I think building our own recommender system could be great. And then, why not just, let's just, be totally optimistic here. Like, what would you do if you couldn't fail? Let's just like go convince like Mark Zuckerberg and all the other people who own the recommender systems to like
Make them better.
better recommender
Human
systems
aligned.
that increase the vibes. Like, I don't think these people are like against that intrinsically. I just don't think they're clued in.
Yes. So here's the biggest clue in
Yeah.
that I've been able to find. I've studied
Yeah.
the world. I've tried to understand the deepest, most important esoteric truths that there are. And I've tried to then find the positive purpose of this. I also believe if your ideology isn't making you extra beautiful and happy, it's a shitty ideology. So the goal is not to find perfect truth. That's a failure mode. That's wanting to become too much of God. That's not servicing a higher power. That's just wanting to become the higher power. So that's a failure mode of some of the people who search for esoteric truths.
Yeah.
But one of the most beautiful truths is the alignment of our shadow, which is really just the alignment of our ego, which is really just the alignment of that internal piece of us, which does want to become the best. It's still going.
Interesting.
Let there be light.
And so, alignment of your shadow.
Yes. This is what the writing, that Golden Meme website, attempts to align people on. See, your will and want to be